Welcome to the Coach's Table Podcast, where coaches come to grow personally and professionally through real-world application and online education. Guys, what is going on today? Happy Tuesday. Our guest today, man, I tell you what, he has a lot to talk about. And I think if you listen to this episode all the way through and you don't get something from it, I think it's because you're not listening. And I think it's because you're not paying attention, in all honesty. There's a lot that we're going to cover, from business, from working in professional settings, high school settings, Division III college settings, private settings, in regards of the field as a whole. So there's just so much that we're going to cover today. But before we get started, if you like this episode, if you get one of three things, if you get educated, encouraged, or entertained by any means, do me a huge favor. Hit the like button, hit the follow, hit the subscribe, drop a comment. That helps us get up in the ratings. That would be awesome. Would much appreciate that. So with no further ado, welcome Joe Aratari. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? Thank you for having me, Kendrick.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate your time. For those of you that don't know, Joe is the manager at Next Level, and he's been there for a hot minute. He's in New York. And he's worked with a lot of people. He's worked with a lot of high school athletes, Division III athletes, Division I athletes, professional athletes. So kind of talk to us about your day-to-day. What does each day look like? I know it's probably different. He's in the private sector right now. But what does each day look like? How do you kind of prioritize the tasks that are the most important for you, that are not only going to help your athletes get the results, but also help you drive your business?
Yeah. So I think you kind of mentioned it and touched on it. And yeah, I am all at once working in the private sector, high school sector. I work in the D3 sector, and I also do strength and conditioning for the Rochester Nighthawks, which is a professional lacrosse team in the NLL. And certainly when I think like to that advantage and to that point, it's helped me gain some insight on all the sectors. Yeah. And when you scroll through social media, when you see things, you kind of get paralysis by analysis, because, if you're working in the high school sector, you might see something in the private sector. You're like, well, I can never do that. Or vice versa, where I think I'm able to kind of pick and choose where I know I'm able to apply things, whether I'm in the team setting, one-on-one setting, private setting, small group, or, even with the Nighthawks or the professional team, they actually, I think, most of them, if not all, live in Canada. I actually only train about 4 guys in person weekly. The rest is all online. Sure. So obviously what I do from an online standpoint and programming standpoint is completely different, right?
So different.
So I think from a priority, I guess day to day, like we'll kind of cover that. I like the fact that no day is the same. I don't report to an office. I'm obviously recording this at home. So I kind of have built in, I just call it like administrative time each day. Where I'll do some things on the private side. So from anywhere from running our internship program, our media, our, just generally speaking, running a business, trying to get more people in the door. And then it's just the little things of like, oh crap, like our mini band's broke. We got to order more bands. Right. Yeah. And then certainly, so I guess like day to day, there's some days I wake up early to go to a session to coach either at the college setting. I probably have like a 2 to 3 hour block every day where, again, I just do administrative work, whether it's personal or for Next Level. Yeah. Typically my afternoons during the work week are about the same. 2:30, 3, I head to the high school. And then some evenings I go back to the facility to do a lot of private training with high school kids around the area. Sure. As I've gotten older, I've been doing that for about 10 years. I used to be like the nighttime guy, basically the early mornings, late nights. And, I know before the podcast, we were talking about like prioritizing other things in life. I'm trying to set myself up a little bit where I don't have to be at the facility all the time coaching at night and, long term. And I'm not trying to be lazy. I work pretty hard. I definitely want to end my days at the high school where I can end a day at like 5, 6 p.m. most days and go home and just spend time with family, spend time with friends and do leisure things. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess day to day, it's more or less, I try to, basically every day I do something administrative wise, something personal wise. I try to read, listen to a podcast, do something educational wise, whether it's 10 minutes, 20. But I do place value in the fact that I'm in the trenches day to day coaching. Just this morning I was with my D3 lacrosse woman at the college I work with, and then I have to go in and work with the high school kids. And then later I'll be working with high school kids in the private setting. So I do value the fact that I'm in the trenches day to day, just coaching.
Yeah. So I think that, man, that's really unique because, first of all, I don't know if there are other people out there that do a very similar thing, especially those in the private sector, right? Where it could be a client one-on-one that is a professional athlete. It could be, a D3 individual. It could be a D1 individual, whatever the case may be. So I think this is a little bit more common in the private sector. In the collegiate sector, obviously not at all, right? Like you have your teams, they are all college athletes, and they are the X sport, right? Now you might get people that you train online that are something, different, that are high schools that want to be in college, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, how does your programming really shift then? Because let's be honest, when you're training one-on-one with somebody and compared to when you're training with a team, your thought process is completely different because logistics is completely different. Time is different. Rest is different. How do you kind of alternate or change between, okay, I'm working with a high school team now I'm working with a D3 team, now I'm working with a guy that's a pro athlete, but there's only 4 of them, does it shift a lot? I mean, principles remain the same, but your thought process has to be kind of different on all that a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think, as you're asking that question, that what you just said last popped in my head first. Like,
yep,
the systems we use, the principles, the foundations of, I guess, what I believe in, what I like, don't change, right?
Yeah.
So I think, I think we've been talking as our staff a lot because we have a lot of new coaches on our staff and young, and like our OGs who have been at next level for a while are getting to the point where we're not coaching all of our groups, and we're putting a lot of emphasis on our younger coaches and development because they're now like going to be the guy or girls leading our high school groups. We're not coaching them as much, where we're kind of in the business a little bit more. So I think the first thing, like as far as programming, like you have to have your big rocks, like you have to have your principles you believe in, whether it's you go all in on one system or not. Like we know there's many ways to skin a cat. I like to pick and choose a lot of different systems.
Sure.
I guess for me, what's helped a lot is creating just template programs. So it saves me a lot of time when I have like a 12-week, let's just say, off-season program. And then from there, it's, typically speaking, I usually start most off seasons with like some type of just GPP phase or some type
100%.
of just, like a little bit more on the high volume. Like I don't care about the weight so much.
Yep.
I'll kind of talk about our women's soccer team at the college level. They just kind of started. And then, so we've been doing that for about 3 weeks. And then I typically shift into about a 6-week modified triphasic.
Okay.
So let's just take that into 9. That's 9 weeks in.
Yep.
And then in the next like 3 weeks, we might be doing like I guess like somewhat of a conjugate. Like I don't know if you follow like a Gango grow kind of.
I really
concurrent block. Like
okay.
I guess I should say like max effort kind of work.
Sure. Sure.
So essentially, like if I have that format and that belief, I can modify that based on high school, private, college, professional.
Sure.
And it's not like we're copying and I'm copying and pasting programs. It's like it's just more of the mindset of like this is what I want to do. As far as each setting, I have to like again giving you an example of the college. We had 8 racks and we had 4 benches for about the last 3 years, right? Yeah. So when I want to program, let's just say a squat and a bench in a day, I have to be mindful. Okay, only half the room can squat and half the room can bench. Then we have to flip-flop.
Then you have to flip-flop, yep.
When I got 20, 30 kids in a room, we can all squat, but we can't all bench at the same time.
Right.
Thankfully, we did just get more racks, or more benches. So I think like for anything, whether it's beginner strength coach or experience, like, your logistics of your weight room, your space, how many kids you have, the level,
100%.
That's going to be the things that you have to fluctuate and be willing to change.
Yep.
I think the hardest thing in the private sector, specifically with me doing, just to kind of give some background of how we run groups, we have existing middle school, high school, college kids in the summer.
Yep.
So high school, middle school, adult, and team training. I personally only do private training. So like we have a lot of high school kids that join our groups, but then specifically kids will reach out to me for training.
Sure.
So I have this program that I wrote, and then, oh crap, like we have another team in our facility that just got rescheduled. So on the fly, like there's times like I'll have to modify based on, right? So and again, like our existing groups will take priority over my privates. Like that's just the way it should be.
Yep.
So I think like, you definitely, I think I put out a tweet like the other day, but like with team training, you have to know your regressions or just modifications.
Yeah.
And I even think for any type of training, like you have to know, like it's like Murphy's Law, like what will go wrong, or what could go wrong, will go wrong.
Absolutely.
Have a plan B just in mind. So I know that's kind of like a long-winded answer, but I don't think my programming big rocks change. I think it's just like the exercises or so forth. So again, like if I'm training one-on-one, I can really have what I guess textbook says work to rest. Like, hey, we're doing this max effort 1 to 3 rep thing. We're gonna rest for like 3 minutes and just have a conversation.
And we're just gonna sit here and talk. Yeah.
Right. And like whoever I'm training, they get that. When I'm with a team, I have an hour, like to this morning, again, I had an hour to train our women's lacrosse team, and we had probably like 20 girls in the weight room, and I have to put in filler stuff. So like I have my A1, I have my A2, and then okay, like I need things kind of revolving. We're gonna just throw in like a mobility thing in A3.
Sure.
And also I think in the team setting, you kind of wear that hat. Like I don't like standing around, even though I know sometimes it's
necessary. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and even like some sports too, like. Some sport coaches hate when they see they're like, why is my kid like sitting? And I have to be like, oh, we just did like a heavy set of 2. Like, they need
time. Yeah.
But so, yeah, again, like long-winded answer, but I don't think my big rocks change. I don't think I necessarily need to change. Like, yes, I will have to change, I guess, some exercise choice.
Of course.
And pairings.
Yeah.
But like my programming big rocks don't change. It's more the logistical stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the same thing in a team setting, right? Like, whether it's having athletes come in and be like, this isn't feeling good. I got injured in last night's game. I slept wrong, whatever the case may be. Or there's other teams training and they started later. And now you're like, okay, well, I was planning on having 6 racks and now I've got 4. Okay, well, how am I going to adjust X, Y, and Z? Or do I cut something? Or, I think if you're a coach and you're doing it and you're in the trenches and you are training teams or training individuals, you kind of recognize that a little bit. I think, there's a lot of coaches at times, though, where you're like, well, I need this. And it's like, okay, well, if you're so inflexible with your program and the specific adaptations that you're trying to get, like,
100%. I think like in-season training is the hardest, not from like as far as like knowing when to modify, like knowing when to be like honestly just listening to your kids, right? Like you have to be that manager of, you have to manage their stress. But again, giving you an example, I know not last week, but last month, like one of our girls basketball team used to train every Wednesday and they don't play until Fridays. And
sure.
So I don't really 2 days before a game, I'm somewhat mindful, but we could still get after it.
Yep.
And they just had like a reschedule where like they came in and like they literally told me, they're like, hey, we have a game tomorrow just to let you know. And I'm like, oh, like it just got rescheduled. Yeah. Like this completely throws like what I had programmed. Yeah. And we just had to modify and we did more of like a dynamic day.
Sure.
But again, like you can't like, punch air with your fist. Like it just roll with it. I think the biggest thing, like, and I'm not the first person to say this, right? Like strength coaches really have to be adaptable.
Yeah.
In certain situations, like if you're at a really high performance model, like you probably have this say, and you probably have sport coaches that are like, yeah, you do your thing.
Yep.
There are a lot of situations where you have to kind of have a little wiggle room and you have to kind of bend a little bit. Luckily in the private sector, we can kind of do what we want, but again, it's not a perfect setting because so many of my kids like have to train with their high school team because that's what their coach says. And then some of my kids that play club sports, they're club sport partners with the gym. So they're training with their high school strength coach. They're training with me. They're training with, another private guy just because their team does. So, I think control what you can in your setting. And, unless you're working with a kid and that's the only thing they're doing, or an athlete, that's the only thing they're doing. Like, you just have to be adaptable. At the end of the day, like, listen to them. Like, they're the ones that know their body better than you. And again, you can't have an iron fist when it comes to like programming. Like, there is no perfect program.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So what you just said at the end, obviously there's no perfect program, right? And I think at times we try to say my program's perfect, but it might be good. It might be good for your situation, but doesn't mean it's perfect. So one of the questions I had, and I kind of wrestle with this a little bit as well, is, and this is with all respect to private coaches. If you're working with, like you just said, some of your girls work with you, they work with another coach because their high school coach says that they have to, they might work with somebody else. How do you guys kind of manage that stress? Because what one coach might program and he thinks is a great training session for that one session, another coach is thinking, hey, I'm going to expand this out over a 4-week time frame, an 8-week time frame, like you just kind of gave a rundown of yours. But this other guy over here is trying to retain clients. And so he's like, well, I got to crush them today, right? Because that's what's going to keep them coming back. And we know that that's probably not what's going to keep them coming back. But you know that there's some people that think like that, right? And then you got a sport coach that may or may not manage practice properly. So how do you guys kind of, I mean, obviously, yes, we talk to the athletes who understand it, but, you know, if we say a benefit of the college sector is you have your sport coaches and you have the strength coach and you have the AT, and, you know, you kind of have a better opportunity for a high performance model, if you will. Whereas in the private sector, an athlete could be trained with 3 or 4 different people, and 3 or 4 different people could have 3 or 4 different thought processes on getting an athlete to where they believe they should be. How do you kind of, you know, work with those other coaches, trainers, other people that they may be working with? What does that look like? Because that's always been a question of mine. When my athletes go home for break and they go and they, you know, go do their trainer, and the trainer's like, well, this is the program we got today. I'm like, yeah, but you don't know like what we've done for the past 6 weeks. Like, you know, maybe that wasn't a good thing to do. You know, I'm always so curious of that.
Right. I think, and you go on social media, and I talk about this a lot, and you'll see a lot of, I guess, like beef between high school private strength coaches, right? Like,
yeah.
And a lot of times coaches will even be like, the biggest things that you communicate with, whether you're a high school coach and a private coach reaches out to you or vice versa, is that communication piece. I think that's important. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but I think you're almost like going past the person that matters most in your athlete. Like, I think if you educate your athlete on what is quality, what should be done in season, what should be done off season, what is acceptable rep ranges, and what is acceptable for a workout, and why we should do full body workouts and not like a back day of like, do that
arms today.
Like,
yeah.
Right. Like, what's acceptable for performance? Like, again, like if I'm training an athlete once a week, that one session, we should be doing some type of jump, throw, sprint. We should be doing a full body. We should be doing some type of power movement, some type of upper, lower, heavy, and some accessory, and maybe some conditioning if you're in the off season. Like that's what a decent split is. So I actually tweeted about this the other day, but like one of my girls went to a private.
I saw this.
Team,
I saw this. Yeah.
So like, but she trains with me on this. Like sometimes team training when they're forced to go, like it just sometimes doesn't work out. Like you're asked, like to give you an example, these kids have to drive because it's out of town an hour and a half to a practice for 2 hours, and then do a 30-minute lift. And they just don't want to do it. So it's almost, it's not a great look for that private gym, but it's nothing that they're doing wrong. But yeah, they had like something very high volume that before a showcase tournament, like 3 sets of, I think 8 back squats with a tempo, which even off season, if you've done 3, if you know what 3 sets of 8 does without a tempo, like it's
you're so
tiring. Then you add a tempo, you add a pause, and let alone before show, it's just not ideal. Let's just say what it is. But through educating her on like, hey, like, and we always say like, I will never do tempo work, like, or high volume work before your showcases, right? Like, I want you feeling good. Like, you have to go on an airplane and sit for a few hours, then you have to get up and play 3 games. You know, so I think that education piece, like she went into that session was like, hey, like, I'm not going to be, and I've told them too, like, you can't be don't be that kid who's like, well, I have my own trainer. Like, I don't want my athletes doing that.
Right. So don't be combative.
Like she appropriately asked the coach, like, hey, can I modify or can I just do like lower volume? And, you know, they were very flexible. They were like, yeah, sure. Like if that works for you. And I think she did like 3 sets of 3 of just squats, and she was fine for the tournament.
Sweet.
So I think the biggest things, like, educate your athletes, like, when they're younger, obviously, like, it's a little harder, but that
Yeah.
high school, ninth grade, like, they have a good understanding of what volume and what training does to them, where when they do stuff on their own, like, they're able to, like, do the right things, right? Like, they're not going to double dip, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yep.
And again, like, I have to also know my role. Like, I do wear these many hats where, like,
Yeah,
when I'm in the
exactly.
team setting, I personally think, like, your team workouts are your team workouts. It's easier for me as a private strength coach to modify than it is probably your high school strength coach. Like,
Mm.
if I have a team workout and my high school kid comes in and was like, hey, like, I went to my private trainer and I did this, I'm probably gonna I'm probably gonna mindful, but I'm gonna tell them, hey, moving forward, like, this is our team, and if we're in season, this is priority.
Yep.
Like, this is what you're doing here. It's easier, and I have like 20, 30, 50 kids at once. It's easier for your private strength coach to modify your workout, and that's what they get paid to do too. Like, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
realistically, in a perfect world, kids would just go to one. Like, I'm not saying they should only have exposure to one strength coach, but
Correct.
it's not ideal, and it's potentially dangerous to program hop.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Again, like, and if you don't equip your kids, like, if they do back squat on a Monday with their high school, then they do back squats with me, and I'm not asking, hey, what'd you do Monday?
Bingo.
Right. And then they go and do it with their team on their club team on a Friday. Like, it's just not setting them up.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
the
I
problem
think
is, well, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the thing
no,
is, and I say this in the college setting, but the thing is the kids, the athletes are the ones that take the brunt of it, right? So,
yeah.
if and they're just trying to be respectful, which I recognize because, maybe they don't want to tell you or somebody else, hey, that we just did that on Monday, because they're like, well, this is what he says, like, let's just do it. And a lot of them are kind of like that, which is, to a certain extent, I respect that, because I recognize that they're just trying to be respectful, like, hey, like, a lot of them don't want confrontation. A lot of them look up to an authority figure like, well, I can't tell him no, right? Which is fair. And so, I think it's a compliment to yourself to say, hey, let's ask what this other person is doing, and have that environment where our athletes can say, hey, this is what we just did. And you're like, oh, well, okay, cool. Let's do this instead. Instead of being like, no, we're doing back squats again. I don't care.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it really starts with, like, just checking your ego. Like, who's this for? Is it for you, or is it for the athlete? And to give you a perfect example, each Friday over, like, the last few months, our girls lacrosse team at the high school level has been training at our facility. So long story short, just, like, our facility is 2 minutes from the high school I'm the strength coach at.
Oh, okay,
and
sure.
On Fridays, we're completely booked at the high school. So our girls lacrosse team, their season's coming up. Like, they need training too. So some sport coaches run the weight room on Friday, and I'm able to actually just take the girls to our facility. So it works out really nice. And
sure,
I probably sound like a broken record, almost to the point where it's annoying, where in our area, just a lot of girls, or not just girls, a lot of kids, like, do have their own private trainers. And I make it a point, like, because every day we do some type of, like, I guess, like, heavier lower body lift.
Sure.
And I make it a point, like, if you did this with your own strength coach, like, within the last, like, 2 days or even week, please let me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's just got to be that, like, I don't want to say it's common sense as a strength coach, but, like,
yep.
I don't care. Like, yes, I might program back squat, but if you did it 2 days ago, like, we're going to split squat. We're just going to change it up.
Yeah.
You're back. You're a sick, like, 14 to 18-year-old person,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And again, like, I strictly tell my girls, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I work in the private setting, and I don't care if you go to someone else. I really don't. Like,
right.
I don't. This could be another conversation, but, like, if people really know me, I don't care about competition, because I don't even view, like, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, I don't view other gyms as competition. I just, like, dude, they're doing their own thing, and there's a lot of, like, I'll say this openly, there's a lot of good strength coaches in our area, in my area. There's a lot of good gyms. Yep. I think we're a really good gym too, and I don't get, like, I don't lose sleep over that, because I'm really I trust what we do, and I'm proud of what we do, and I don't care if kids go to other places, because it just doesn't bother me. So I openly tell our team, like, if you go somewhere else, you got to let me know because I'm just looking out for you. Like,
Yep.
and your private strength coach would appreciate me saying that too.
100%. Well, and to that point though, right? Well, to that point, because I think this is a huge topic, a huge point, huge thing, and excuse me, but just in life in general, right? So, if you do have competitors that are close to you, that are online with you, that are offering the same services as you, that are, the fastest way for you to lose business is for you to be resentful against them and to be like, do you see what so and so is doing over there? Well, this is why they suck, and this is why I'm better. You know what that tells your clients, your customers? Hey, we're not going back to this guy, right? Because if you're willing to throw other people down, willing to put other people under the bus, like they're just going to be like, oh, well, that's you saying that. And like, that says more about you than it does this other person, i.e. your competition, right? Instead of like, let's be collaborative. Let's help each other. Let's promote each other's services. Like, oh, like if you offer something that they can't, hey, like this is what I offer and they don't. Or if they offer something you can't, hey, you know what? As much as I want you to train with me, as much as I would love for your business, right? Because at the end of the day, you're trying to make money, but I don't offer this service. They do. I recommend you go see so-and-so. And it's just like being real. It's just being authentic. And like that generates so much more business than, haha, did you look at so-and-so? Yeah, they suck. Like, this is why I'm so much better. Like the problem, we just get so much like this consistently instead of like, let's help each other. Like if people don't understand how big the world is, the internet is, like, I think there's like, 8 billion people on the world. That's pretty massive. Okay. Like that's pretty freaking massive. And if you just tap into the internet just a little bit, I mean, there's like I don't even know. I think there's like 330 million people in the United States. That's probably completely off. I think there's probably way more than that. Okay. So if you just get a very, 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 very small percentage of those people and you work with them online, I think you're going to do okay. And if you offer the same services I do and we both work with people online, I think we're both going to do okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, but we just get so resentful and we're just like, why? Like you're losing business, bro.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially with the online piece. I really think that's it. I think it's odd to get resentful about air quotes competition in the online space because like to me like there's a ton of different pages, like tons and tons of different pages all promoting and doing the same stuff, right? Like,
Yep.
It's just how they market. It's just how they like sometimes just getting to someone first.
Yep.
But even in like I guess like I don't want to say real world space, but
the real world.
In our area, it really becomes like when so and so like again like work in a high school, I get kids that go work with me and then they work on the side and say or they work with someone else on the side and like, hey, I was at so and so's and like I know there are strength coaches that are like, why are you doing that? Like that's stupid.
Yep.
Why are you going in? And like when kid tells me like, oh, hey, I went to this gym like yesterday, I'm like, oh, cool. What'd you guys do? Or okay,
how was it?
How like I just truly don't care because I think when you again focus like if I was to look at all the gyms in my surrounding area, and Rochester is very saturated, which there are tons of gyms in our area, whether it's just your typical like Gold's Gym, LA Fitness type stuff, or your sport performance kind of gyms. There are a ton in our area, and Rochester sports are, I think, they're really good. They're really good.
They're a big deal. Yeah,
and we definitely pump out like good athletes among like your lacrosses, your hockeys, and things like that. But if I was to lose sleep over all the athletes that aren't training with us, like you take away from the athletes that are, excuse me, and we have
you never sleep.
We have tons of athletes that we service. Like we need to focus on them because ultimately, like from a business, like obviously the end goal, we're trying to help these kids, we're trying to help these adults. Right. But then the goal from a business standpoint too, like we help them. That's the best word of mouth. Like that's what's gonna get people through the door or their experience. We really try to deliver on experience because we know like at the end of the day, when we get high school kids, if they just stick with us for 6 months, they're going to get stronger faster, whatever their goal is. Because I think with most beginners, it can be that simple. So really, it's really like, how do we deliver a good experience where they want to come back? Yeah. But again, I know just to kind of put this debate to bed, I guess, or it's worry about who you have and just don't have an ego. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
People also make decisions of
Yep.
who they train with for reasons not personal, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like again, like I remember a school 2 years ago. I was at one of my football guys. He was coming to the team list, but he was also going to another strength coach on the side, and I didn't like I didn't really talk to him about it. And then I learned it was his freaking brother-in-law.
There
So
you
like
go.
this whole time, like I could have an ego, like why the hell is this kid going to a strength coach on the side? Like our football
Yeah.
workout can
Yeah.
be enough for him. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, the dude's just going like his brother-in-law owns a gym and he just wants to hang
Yeah.
out with his brother-in-law and train, and he
Yep.
gets to train for free. So like
Yep. Why
I
not?
could have had my ego and like I probably did at that point. Like why is this kid doing this? And now I'm just like I feel
Yeah.
stupid. Like he's going for reasons that I don't even like know. Right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and on top of that, like if your athletes are going to other people, I think that's a huge opportunity to educate them on nutrition too. Because, if you look, if you're training with me 3 times a week and you're training with somebody else 2 times a week, you're training 5 days a week, right? Well, let's ensure that you're eating enough. Oh, you got practice on top of that. Well, let's ensure you're eating enough. Are you sleeping? Like, I think it just opens the door for more conversations. Not only the conversation like, hey, what did you guys do? Because I want to make sure you're not crushed. I want to make sure that you can perform, recover. But at the same time, like, hey, what's your nutrition like? How's your sleep? Are you, maybe are they taking any supplements? Maybe, right? Like, if not, like, what do you like? Is this beneficial for you? Potentially. Well, let's talk about it, right? And then you can have more conversations in the aspect of like, I'm here to help you get better. And therefore, whatever you're doing, I don't care. I just need to know about it because if I don't know about it, I can't help you, right? And it's the same thing that kind of the same talk track that I have with my athletes is like, hey, look, like if you didn't sleep last night, like I need to know. I think I tell like, especially here, but like I think I told them if you had 5 hours of sleep or less last night, like I need to know because if let's say we have a heavy reverse lunges for that day. Well, if you didn't sleep and you didn't recover, am I helping you or am I doing more damage here? Maybe, I don't know, but I need to know about it, right? And maybe it's you still do the reverse lunges, but we take some load off or we change your velocity zone or whatever the case may be. But it's like, if I don't know about that, I can't help you. If I don't know that you stayed up till 3 a.m. last night studying and then you got up at 6:30, like I can't help you. And then if if you're performing bad and I'm like, yeah, like what's up? And then you're like, well, I didn't sleep. It's like, well, why didn't you just tell me that from the beginning? Because then I actually would like change how I looked at it and been like, hey, I want to make sure you're okay. Is this too much? Do you need to back off? Like, do you just need to go sleep? Like, in all honesty, like just go take a nap for an hour. Is that better? Maybe. Who knows, right? Like, so I think there's just so much aspect of it from like a conversation standpoint instead of just getting upset and resentful. It's just like look at it from the opportunity of that opens the door for so much more conversation.
Yeah. I think phase one of coaching, getting into this field, is knowing like generally program design and appropriate reps and sets.
Yep.
But then a higher tier is knowing, like first tier is knowing how to program. Second tier is knowing how to change, like defer from the program,
Adjust.
like
yeah.
knowing how to adjust. And yeah, again, we've been talking about this topic for a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, it's just like equip your kids with education on knowing what to do when they're not with you, because you really can only control when they're with you. And again, like if they go to another private guy or another high school, like they probably won't modify there because like you said, they might be afraid to speak up. Right. But certainly if they do stuff on their own, it's just like, hey, we squatted on a Monday, you're going to Gold's Gym on Tuesday, you probably don't need to squat again. Like go do your bro stuff or whatever it is. Or even like a accessory like volume. But so I think really it's just like educating kids on, knowing how to modify for themselves and honestly advocate for themselves.
Yep, 100%. Okay, so one thing I'd love to talk to you about is the business side of the house, because we can talk about people's pay or how there's not any, whatever the case may be, but let's not talk about the negative. Let's talk about the opportunity that people have to help themselves, because you guys not only train people in person, but you train people online. What does that look like? What is your thoughts, recommendations? If you're a coach, should you be online training people? My thought process is everybody should, personally, because you have a skill set. So learn to market that skill set, learn to sell that skill set, and learn to help people. But how does that look for you guys? And talk to me about the business aspect for what you do at Next Level and online.
Yeah. So I mean, again, disclaimer here, like I have zero business background, and I don't, Nate Van Couwenberg is the owner of Next Level, and he'll even say the same. Like when he got into the field, he
Yeah.
had very little minimum business background, and I think especially on the private side, like Nate, I mean, created this play like created this Next Level in a little bit on the corporate side, you kind of get handed a manual on like, this is how we attack social media. This is how we have sales. This is our operating system. This is how so and so forth. Right.
Right.
This thing broke in our facility. Okay. Corporate's going to buy us a new one. Where
Right.
in the private side, like there is no perfect manual. There is no perfect,
Yeah.
like, so I always joke around, but like right now, I mean, I've been at Next Level since 2015. So I've been a manager since I was like 23 years old.
Sure.
Which
Kim?
I didn't know that. That's pretty young. Right?
Yeah.
Mike Moon, who's been there like a year, maybe 2 years before me, we're around the same age. And then at the time we had, I kind of talked about my roommate, Jake. He was a manager, but in the last like 3 years, it's been this other, really for a while, it was just me, Mike, and Nate. And Nate's a little bit older, but like you kind of have Nate, who at the time was in his like mid 30s. You have me and Mike, who are young 20s, running a business.
Yeah.
We don't know. And like, we're guessing. Like, what time should we be posting on social media? What should we be doing? Like, right. And even right now, like, we're still pretty young. Like, and like Dylan's one of our managers, and he's mid 20s. And now we brought on Haley Brucato, who she's, young 20s too. And like, so right now, like our management team, aside from our part-time coaches and assistant coaches, like it's basically 2 people that are in their young 30s, 2 people in mid 20s, and then Nate, who's like in his, like just turned 40, right? So like, we're fairly young, and like I always say, like, we make educated guesses at times when it comes to things, and it's not that we don't know what we're doing. Like Nate has obviously gained a lot of experience over the last like 10 years. Like, okay, this is how we do things. And we're in a much better position now than even 2015, like I think a good position. It's hard to like give business advice, because like some of it is like reactive to like how things are. Like, I can't forecast like what the new social media trend is, like how we run our social media. I think like I kind of touched on this, like at the end of the day, like I think really like whether it's business online, in person, like it really comes back to like how you display competence. So to me, competence is results. Like, how do you display that? Like, if you want to have a business, you have like a good, successful business in this field, you have to display results. So you got to do that. First off, you have to have good programming. You have to have good training. And then you need a way of tracking that and showcasing it. Like, if you're a gym that's focused on getting kids faster and you don't show any improvements in speed, then you're kind of like, you're not promising what you preach, right? Like, so like if you kind of view our page, like we post a lot about kids jumping and sprinting and lifting new PRs. Like, we want to showcase improvements. Obviously there's the human piece of like, kids like to see that, like they like recognition. But we're not stupid. Like, we know parents follow our page. We know other kids do. And oh crap, like
it's good for business.
Put out whatever in her vertical in 6 months. Like, I want to do that, right? I touched on it earlier. The experience, like I take a lot of pride in Next Level, because we're like, I don't want to, like, we're always down to have a good time. Like and I'm not just saying like in a party sense. Like, we want our athletes to have a good time. Like, I take so much pride in the fact that so many friendships have started in our 4 walls. Like, our Roots members, Roots is our adult training group. Like, they hang out all the time outside of training. Like, after Saturday sessions, they'll like sit and have coffee for like an hour. Our athletes, like especially our college athletes, will like go out together. Like, that to me is cool. Right. Like, I love seeing that. Our pro guys, like they always, I mean, they've been friends for a while, but like they go golfing together. Like they, even our high school kids, like they form relationships, and to the point where, like, they, you start following each other on social media and like Snapchat and things like that. Like, I love that. And the fact that like they've started friendships in our 4 walls, that's cool. So we try to position ourselves. How can we be their second home, or their home away from home? Right. So like that's the experience. And then I think like any good coach like shows empathy. Like, hey, like we've been there before. Like again, like hopefully online can show that I'm taller than I am, but I'm only 5'6". Like at 5'6", I played college sport, but like going into college, I was like 125, 130. And like throughout training and like that's why I do what I partly why I do what I do. Like I put in a lot of work in the weight room and like what I put on like 30, 40 pounds of like muscle in college. And that helped me be a better college soccer player. So now when I have like this like incoming whatever grade who maybe they're like scared, intimidated, I could take them aside and be like, hey, like I've been there. Like and all of our coaches have been in those like we fortunately have all been like I think it helps that we're all collegiate athletes or have been.
Definitely.
So that really helps. But so I mean I guess from the business side, like we can talk about like our systems, our manuals, our like price points, but I think at the end of the day, like we really focus on results, experience, and just showcasing empathy. Because I think like that is our best like word of mouth. Like that's our best marketing. Like I almost take too pride in this. We haven't done a paid advertisement in probably like 4 years.
Wow.
And that's probably like I probably should be doing it because like I control a lot of our social media and like I know if Nate does listen to us, he'd be like, dude, we got to get back to like paid. And it's like, like we're doing all right without it. Like, I don't know. Like, and so partly that's me being like, you know what, let's just put up a bunch of stories. That's free. Like get like the kids that follow us see that. Right. So that's like the business piece. I think the online piece. Yeah. I think, you know, and I kind of was talking to you before the podcast, like I'm getting to the point where like I coach a lot of sessions at night and I want to get to the point where like I don't have to do as much in person and that's having some feel both for me personally and for next level. Like how can we make, and that's not passive, you obviously have to do some work, but like how can we make some revenue or some income without necessarily having to like trade hours for dollars, if that makes sense. Like
correct. Yeah, exactly. Because that model, because that model is it's a tough model.
It's a grind.
It's a grind. It's exactly.
It is. And again, like we're always like our bread and butter at Next Level, we're always going to have middle school, high school, adult training, team training, and like we do a lot of stuff like with like partnered high schools. And we're at the point where like we have a good following, and specifically in the hockey sense, like we train a lot of like high end hockey players. So it would just be honestly dumb not to like explore that venture. I even think all of our coaches, like I really push our coaches to do more social media, and some do, some don't. But to me, it's like if you like at a certain point, again, like I don't want to be at the facility until 8, 9 o'clock. So if I'm not going to be coaching in person, getting some income, and I want to do certain things in my life, like what am I doing to substitute that? Because if I don't coach in person, then I'm just not making any income or any money, right? So like, what am I doing? Like for example, I train a team in like I forgot what part of New York, but like they're doing like a 12-week online program for their team training, and really like it's not like I get an intake of what their equipment is, and I'm writing a custom program based on their like preseason through their midseason through their postseason. And you know the coach and I have like decent feedback, but like once I build the program and I just have like minor tweaks here and there. Like it's not like I have to go into the gym until 9 o'clock. Like I can do that stuff during my afternoon time, and like if you charge whatever price points you feel comfortable, like I think it's well worth it. So yeah, I mean, again, like I think you have to have that conversation with yourself or with your business of like, hey, like who do we want to be? If there are obviously trainers out there that are strictly online and like they strictly work with people online. They have like a huge social media following. They put out content daily, like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, things that are packaged well, but they probably train maybe 5 people in person.
If that.
Right? At this point. And it's not to say that they've never trained people in person. And maybe I'm wrong, but for me, like Next Level, we will never be that. Like we will always have in-person training. And then even me, like I will always prefer in-person training. Like I never want to be like, hey, I'm in Malibu, like just
Correct.
sending out programs. Like I'm all online.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to do. I
Yeah.
like the in-person piece, but if you can pull an extra 5, 10, 20 plus K a year, like
Just
from an
online.
online, like
Yeah.
yeah, like you definitely have to put in the work on the back end, but like once you've built the program, the systems, then you just have to like, I guess
Market.
market it or
Yeah. Yeah.
pump it out.
Well,
Yeah,
like that's
like
the thing. So I'm a huge, and I don't mean to cut you off, sorry, but I'm a huge
you're
proponent
good.
of people doing stuff online, and here's why: because of what you're talking about, trading the model of trading hours for dollars, right? If you're just in person, I can do a couple of things. I can so let's start. If I go one on one, right? So I can charge you X for one on one, whatever that value is, okay? And each person's going to differ, but I can charge you X. Great. Well, let's say that's an hour. Awesome. So I can only fill up so many hours of the day, which limits my potential to actually make the amount of money for that particular day, right? So let's say I'm on the floor for 6 hours, maybe 8, maybe 10, maybe 12, right? That's what you can make in that day. Now I can then go semi-private where I have maybe a small group, right? So it's 4 or 5 people in that 1 hour who all pay me individually. So now my price just quadrupled for that 1 hour, right? If they all pay that price, or maybe doubled, whatever the case may be. Okay. Then you can go team training, right? Which is then, hey, you know what? For our teams, for this hour, the price is more because obviously we train more athletes, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're still only limited by the amount of hours in the day. And no matter how hard everybody works, nobody works harder than everybody else, right? But you can only still be on the floor for so many hours a day, right? And you have the logistics component and all this other stuff. But what you can do then is take your skill set, put it online, right? Behind an ebook, behind a paywall, however you want to do it. There's a lot of other systems that you can utilize to help people. Whether it's a team builder, whether it's there's a bunch of apps out there, right? Well, now you can train unlimited amount of people in the same 1 hour that it's going to take you to write that program. You can have infinite, quote unquote, amount of people purchase that program, and now you're not trading your time for dollars. Rather, you're just trading, the aspect of you right into that program to however much people will pay for it and how many people will pay for that, right? So
Yeah.
I think you should do both personally. So if you are online, I think you should continue to be online and continue to develop more products and continue to have people purchase, and then also train people in person, because there's something said about training people in person, right? If you're just 100% online, I don't think it's a bad thing, but there's something to be said about in the trenches training with people in person, the relationship aspect, the communication aspect. Hey, what does this look like? The movement quality, all of that stuff is vastly different than looking at it through a screen.
Yeah. I think like, my social media, I don't even want to say strategy, because like, I think if people go on my page, they'll see it's pretty organic. Like there's like, sometimes I'll go quiet for a while. Sometimes I'll just like tweet out a video. Sometimes I'll have thoughts. Like I don't, it's not that I don't have a great social media strategy. I think it's organic. Like I just post when I want, what I feel like. But I think like I use my in-person thing to kind of like validate, like, I guess I don't want to say my online presence, but like I just showcase like what I'm doing day to day. And like over the last like almost 10 years, that has obviously paid off. So yeah, I think like,
well, it goes back to what you were saying though, right? Results first, right? So you have to, so if you have to have the results, bottom line, right? So if you want more people to work with you, you got to have results, bottom line, doesn't matter, right? So you're just saying like, I get results in person and then I share it online and people want to work with me. Pretty simple, right? Like I train people in person, they get faster, they jump higher, they get stronger. I take a video of that. Post it online. There you go.
Like whether it's results or like, I think like, I can confidently say, like, I do sometimes have like imposter syndrome, like
100%.
I think we all struggle with that, but like, I don't position myself as like I need to start positioning myself as someone that like I've done like a decent amount in the last 10 years, and I got good experience, and sometimes it's hard to like say that without sounding cocky. But I've been doing a lot more like one-on-one, just like calls with people that want advice on like, whether it's business, high school sector. I mean, we've done a really good job at Next Level positioning ourselves within high schools in our area. And I think like I have good knowledge on that. So like even like I've done a lot of like one-on-one Zoom calls. Like, you know, people have been paying me for like things that aren't just like program design.
Right.
And obviously that's like a service that I offer for coaches, but more just like on career advice, especially for like, I guess like the mid-20s coaches, like just kind of starting out, like things that have helped me. So I think like if you have a skill set, like you should package it, and like your, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, whatever you use, like that's somewhat of your online resume. And again, like I don't make hard sells all that. Like I don't really market what I do, like as far as direct marketing. I don't tweet like all the time, like, hey, here's my service, buy it. Like here, like I just put out information. Then like I get a lot of direct messages from coaches that are like, hey, do you have products? Hey, do you have do you offer this call? And then I have those private conversations like, yeah, I do. Like, here's how you purchase them, or here's how you sign up. So again, like however you want to run your social media or your strategy, whatever, that's up to you. I just think if you have a skill set and you're like, be confident about it. Like if you feel like you're getting good results in person, like somehow showcase that online, because to your point, like, yeah, you can only train. Like I can openly say I want to be like careful how I say this. Like, I don't want to come off as like, I could openly probably make 20 grand more a year by just grinding and taking all of our morning sessions, doing a ton of our nighttime sessions, working Saturdays and Sundays at Next Level, like doing other things. Like I can take all the like in-person sessions I want, make way more than I am right now. But like at what point, like to my lifestyle and my like I don't want to work Sundays as I get older, like all the time. I don't want to work Saturdays. I don't want to work Friday nights until 9 o'clock. So how can I potentially like make passive income during those hours without like grinding myself away, like to the, like I want to we've talked about this, I want to be in this field for another 35 years. I know I can only coach so many, like in-person coaching 8 to 10 hour days.
And honestly, I think your best coaching comes when you're really only coaching a couple hours a day too, right?
It 100%. I mean, there's, I don't even have to expand on that. 100%.
Yep. 100%.
Summer training, I look forward to summer training the most. By mid-July, like early August, I'm like, oh my God, this is a brutal, because our like summer, think about it, we get all our college, all our pros, all our high school kids. Like I'm coaching like 7 to like 5 straight. And I hate to say this, sometimes like those, I try not, but like we're all human. We're not perfect. Like those later sessions, like they get to you, and like your energy, your juice, like we're yelling over loud music and hot weather. Like you just get
all day.
fried. Like
you get fried.
It really, like as I've gotten, like I can safely say like in my 20s, I put in a lot of sweat equity where like, I was putting in a lot of like 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. days. And it's not to the point where I'm like afraid of working hard. I think now it's, how do I work hard and smart? Like like just be more efficient with my time, because at the end of the day, again, I want to do this for a while, but like, like when that time comes where you want to have more of a social life, you want to spend time with your family. Like there's a lot of strength coaches that, I hate to say it, get divorced. Like I don't want to be that. Like I want to be able to, when I have kids, like be like, I'm done at work at 5 and I want to watch your game like at night, like,
100%,
with while still being responsibly like taking care of my livelihood and things like that. So
and that's not a bad thing to have. I mean, it's not a bad thing to want.
No, right. So I think again, like that's the reason why like I want to do online stuff, is to like free up my time to be able to be like present, but like also like I'll give more to my in-person people too. If you're not coaching so many different people in person and you just have like some clients, some athletes, and then you do some online, like you said, like your, I guess, bandwidth is a little bit smaller, so you can give more to those people.
Right. So speaking of the social media aspect, because it's interesting, and I want to pause when I say that, because here's my take. I think you should post. I think you should put your stuff out there. I'm a huge believer in it. I think you should, make it look nice, make it look pretty. but put your stuff out there and do it consistently. And because I mean, you have a good following, right? You just didn't grow a following because you posted one time, right? You didn't have 20,000 followers or 50,000 followers or however many you have now. It's a lot. Just because you posted one time, right? So I think if you're a coach, what you should do is post online. And I think you should do it consistently. I think you should make it look good, make it look pretty, have, a good thing to say about it, and, do that consistently, almost every day, if not every day, close to, right? 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever the case may be. Because then, I mean, it's your online resume, right? And it shows like what you can do, how you've done it, all that aspect of it. But then it obviously opens up the opportunity for people to work with you. But I just think only a handful of people are really like truly putting stuff out there, and then it's just a fight. Oh, well, I like this. Oh, I don't like that. And it's just like my strategy is, and I know we were talking about this, but it is, if I disagree with something, I'm just going to keep scrolling. Hey, you know what? Hey, if I really disagree with something or I have a question, I just hit them in their DMs. Hey, I saw you posted X, Y, and Z, and I have a question on this. Would love to talk about it, right? And it's not public, like, you're so bad at what you do. Like, just, I don't need to be putting that out into the world. But thoughts on coaches? Obviously, you post on social media. I post on social media. Should more coaches do that? Because here's the thing that I get all the time, and I think it's BS. Well, I'm not going to film during my session because I'm so focused on the session. Okay, all right. Well, you know what? Then keep making your $30,000 a year and keep it moving. But like, you can have other people film for you. You can have other athletes film for you. Like, it doesn't take long. I love that excuse. Yeah. I'm so focused on the session. Shut up. Like, gosh.
Yeah, I think like it's hard. Like, again, we're both like young, so like I don't want to come across as like preachy, right? Like, this is what you should do, especially to coaches that have put in time. Of maybe there are like 40, 50-year-old coaches that don't film, but they've had great careers without it. So like, again, if you can live, it really comes down to like, I have a pretty like, I just get like deep into things, but like, it comes down to like what you want out of life and like what you value. And if you are living the life you want, living like you're able to take care of what you need, like you feel like you're in a good position without social media, then like, cool. I think everyone should use it, but like, if you're doing what you want, don't use it. Like, if it's not something that you need to do and it's just going to be an added stressor, don't force it. Don't use it. Like, there are a lot of coaches that literally just have accounts just to like follow other people and learn. Like, if that works for you, you're able to live the lifestyle you want.
Great.
So be it. I think a couple things too, like, again, like I don't want to like position myself to like change the field. Like, I don't have that mindset.
Sure.
I just want to like improve on the field. Like, and I want to definitely be like, when some people think about strength conditioning, like I want to put out good information where like like just the other day I was having a talk about mobility and I brought up Vernon Griffith.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I showed him his page to one of my athletes. Like, so I'm thinking, I'm just sitting there like, Vernon has no idea that I did that, right? Correct. Like, because of what he puts out in the world, I was able to help one of my athletes who will never meet him, never talk to him. Right. So to me, it's like, and I truly think this has been the case where like people will share my content with their athletes, or they'll maybe the sport coach who just doesn't have a strength coach is able to use my content for their program. So like, that's a large reason why I post. Like, I want to obviously help a large audience, and social media and Twitter has been a great platform for that. Yeah. I think when it comes to like the negativity piece, I think like you just have to know like who you are. Like, some people, that's their true DNA and that's their like, right? Like, some people don't care. Like, they're bold. They don't care how they're perceived. Like, they stick to their guns. And like, even in person, some people are very like, there's our sport coaches that just tell it how it is, no matter what. They don't care if they hurt your feelings. There are like, and sometimes I have to be that sport coach when I work with, like, I'm the strength coach. I work with 20 teams and I have to try to make every head coach happy. Like, there are times I have to like, not play nice, but I got to be like, I got to bite my tongue with something. Yeah, right.
100%.
So like, that's again, like know your DNA. Like there are some coaches that don't work with high school teams, or they don't whatever. Like they can almost say what they want online and it doesn't hurt them. I know for me, if I was like disrespectful online, like it just makes me look, I think, bad. Like I don't want like I have a lot of my athletes that follow me, and it could come across funny to some, but like I don't want my athletes to be like, yo, every time I go on Twitter, Coach Aratari is just beefing with someone. Like that's not, like that's me. Like I don't want that. Like even the other day, like someone kind of came at they didn't really come at me, but they just said something about like the athletes are like, oh, that sprint mechanic was trash, and I was just like,
oh yeah, hey, man, I saw that. I saw that. Yeah,
I think like we had a good debate. I was just like, hey man, like, first things first, and she's not a track athlete, and she was running a 115 or 114 flying sprint, flying 10 sprint. That's pretty fast. Like she's a senior female athlete. Like that's pretty fast, especially for a non-track athlete. So I was just like, dude, I got like 20 to 30 kids all by myself. I have an hour. Like, yes, I would love my athletes to have great mechanics. It's just right. So like we dealt with it in a professional manner, and at the end of the day, like they were civil, they were cool about it. There's definitely that like time where I just wanted to be like, dude, shut the hell up. Like, what are you talking about? Right. So I think you kind of said it, like, don't put negativity in the world. Like our field is great. I think people want to complain about strength conditioning a lot, whether it's pay, whether it's the egos, but I think I'm an optimist. I truly think there's more good than bad.
I agree with that.
I think there's more people receptive of feedback and criticism or critique, I should say, than there maybe not. So I think like when there's things you disagree with, like come at it with a like seeking mind, like, and obviously there's definitely stuff that's just trash. Like
sure,
but like if something's so clearly obvious, like just leave it. Like everyone knows, like it is.
I heard something. I heard something, and I was just like, yeah, that's actually pretty true. It's like there's 1,000 right ways to do it, but there's definitely a wrong way to do it, right? And I was just like, that makes a lot of sense, you know. Like, and I think at times we split hairs because, and I love the field, and I think our field is becoming far more collaborative, which is amazing to see, and we're really starting to learn from other people. But it was just a great statement. It was just like, yeah, there's 1,000 different ways to do it, but there's definitely the wrong way to do things. And I was like, okay, that's fair. I respect that. That's good. But crazy, man.
Yeah, I think some people lose sleep over what strength coaches they'll never meet with athletes they'll never meet. Do and I think that's just like a weird thing to me. Like if like again like there's like if you tweet something or requote something because something's like funny because it's so gimmicky and bad, that's one thing. Sure. But like some people literally like their blood pressure raises. They're like, I can't believe this coach is doing this. And again, if something's wildly dangerous, I want to put like there is a time and place to call that out if you have a following, because you want to protect kids. Like that's the goal, right? Like you want to make sure kids and coaches don't do these things. But like again, like the other day I put a girl like back squatting. She was in 8th grade doing 135, and like one of her 3 reps was maybe above parallel, like just slightly above parallel. And someone's like, Coach, you're gonna let that slide? And I was like, yeah, it looks fine to me. Like she's not a power lifter. And he was just like, it's not about being a power lifter. It's about doing it with the right form. But if you say so, and I was just like, dude, like, you want me to really go in this debate about like, there's a time and place to get parallel and time. It's just like, I just let that tweet go. I was like, clearly this person, like some people are so close-minded. Where like you can know when you're in a conversation with someone and it's civil, where it's productive, where you can, at the end of the conversation, you can just be like, you know what, like agree to disagree. Like I respect you. And again, like I've said this, I want to be in this field for 20, 30 years. If I'm just a donkey online and again, like I have to make a living mostly in person. If I'm a donkey online, like I just don't think it's doing well for my personal relation or I guess just like reputation, and I just don't think that would suit me well. It might suit others well, and maybe others have been fine being kind of bashful online, or not bashful, bashing people online. I just think for me, it wouldn't work out, and that's why like I try to stay away from that.
I agree with you. I mean, that's a really excuse me, that's a really good way to put it, is just like, hey, if this isn't going to help me drive business or help my athletes, probably not the best thing. Or if it's not going to help me. But then there was there's the aspect of like, remember that video that just came out of that guy that was having the tire and was slamming it on those kids? Did you see that? Yeah. It's like, okay, well, like that's obviously a massive.
That stuff is like, again, like, yeah, you can like that is like obviously like.
Yeah,
make jokes about that, and again, like, that's coming from like Bleacher Report. Like it's like some random 22-year-old intern running that.
Right.
Like even that one, like I don't even want to put a coach under the bus here, but like if I like a direct page or sport coaches posting stuff, like
you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and like again, at the end of the day, like their athletes are following them. Like maybe their family members are.
Yeah.
Maybe I try to. Maybe I'm too nice, and I just like don't want to like. I don't need to. Like I'm not losing sleep over this. Like like you said, I'm gonna worry about the athletes I worry about, and I'd rather steal the good things and like anything I don't agree with or like, just keep scrolling. Like I'm not losing sleep. I don't care.
100%. No, I mean I'm just the same way. I did the same thing with one of the coaches reached out to me and was asking about mobility stuff for throwers. And it was awesome. He's a great dude. I love him. He's an awesome dude. But I did the same thing that you did. I took some of the stuff from Vernon Griffin and I linked his YouTube. I didn't steal it. I linked his YouTube. I sent him an email. I'm like, these would be great things to do. Right? Like, and I was like, if you don't follow this guy, you should follow this guy. Like, I was like, he's way better at this than what I am. So instead of me trying to take credit, like, hey, here's his YouTube page, here's his Instagram, here's his Twitter. These are the 5 that I recommend from him. Here you go. Let me know what like that was my extent of it. And he's like, these are awesome. I love these. And I'm like, cool, thanks. Like, it's not because of me, but it was just like, if he didn't put that out there, I'd be like, okay, well, like we can do some T-spine work. But I mean, obviously we could have more than that, but it was just great because it was like, he's now becoming a resource. And I think that's a big thing to think about is if you are going to put stuff out online, which I recommend, start positioning yourself in a way where you become a resource to people, right? And saying like, people will go to your page like, oh, I saw that from Joe. That's what it is. That's right. So I think that's a big aspect of it is start to think about it from how do I become resourceful for people? So that's awesome, man. I do want to be respectful of your time. We're an hour 7, hour 10 into this bad boy. Any closing thoughts, anything that you have a burning desire that you want to touch
on? I think we covered a lot of interesting topics. You kind of put me on the spot with this one.
Yeah. Come on, man. You got to be adaptable. You got to be adaptable.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
No, I think, again, I've been really, and I know we kind of talked about like, the online stuff and position yourself. And like, I've just turned 31 and over like, call it cliche, but like the New Year's time, like that, I always like the week after the holiday because I typically have that off from the high school and I don't have as much coaching. So I really have this like week to like, just kind of like reset and like go over my goals for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been talking a lot with like our younger coaches and especially like some of our former interns about like just lifelong satisfaction in this field. Because again, like the turnover rate is like what, like 40%, like
huge.
4 out of every 10 trainers or strength coaches leaves the field every year.
Yeah.
Something like that. And it's like, that is like, I'm not saying we're unique or we're the only field, but like, I look at teachers, like, I don't see that with teachers. Like most teachers stay teaching, like most lawyers stay a lawyer, most doctors stay a doctor. It's like, so again, like I want to be doing this for a while and maybe when I'm hopefully when I'm 60, I'm not working in high school, private, college, professional for the next 30 years. Like, I know I'll probably potentially cut something like down the line, or at least limit it. But it's like, how can I look at Boyle, right? Like he's doing what he loves. He's still a strength coach, still working in the private sector, still putting out tons of content.
Crazy.
Well into his 60s, right? Like but he obviously like, maybe I'm wrong, but I guarantee he's not coaching all day. Like how can I position myself where I can continue to be in this field, make not just enough to like, oh, I got to pay my mortgage. I got to pay, like,
Right.
I want to be able to thrive. And it doesn't come from like this greedy, like, I want money to have the most materialistic things. It's like, I want to make a good living so I can
Take care of my
like
family.
have fun and love, take care of who I want to take care of, myself, my family.
Yep.
Have a good future, and then like ultimately, like, yeah, I want to retire at some point, like,
Yeah,
or maybe go
yeah.
part time, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think like younger strength coaches, especially before they got in the field, like have to position themselves where, again, like it's hard to build a following if you start almost too late. Like it's not impossible. But like again, like at a certain point, like if you wait until like, I shouldn't say like it's impossible, but like I think like if you're young now, like this is the perfect time to use tools to your advantage, like social media or whatnot.
Yep.
Because like I look at myself, like I've been tweeting consistently since I was like 22, and like I'm not even like that, I think, great at social media, and I've like organically like on the side built like 20,000 followers.
Yeah.
And there's coaches that put out tons, like again, like Pat Basil puts out so much content lately.
So much. Yeah.
He started like he was lower followers than me, and I'm gonna look at his page now. Like he's upwards of like 30, and then like Jerry DiFilippo has like just blown up.
Yeah.
And those guys like put out so much more consistent content.
And good stuff too, and good content too.
Oh my god! Well, that's you said. They put out so much value.
Yes.
Pat is a resource for so many people. Jerry is phenomenal at what he does. Again, long kind of ramble, but I think we really have to start positioning ourselves as like professionals, career wise, not just like, oh, I'm a strength coach. Like, oh, what do you want to do? Like, oh, I want to work in the college setting, and I'm 22. It's like, okay, are you going to be a D3 strength coach for the next 30, 40 years? Like, right? So I think it's just having this mindset of like knowing how you want to like navigate, like, I guess this career, right? Like, I'm fortunate that I've seen all the sides of what I want to see in this field. And I'm pretty like confident of like how I can thrive for the next like 20 to 30 years.
Sure.
And again, like, I think getting into this field a little later than some like has forced that kind of mindset on myself. And I've been lucky with the positions I've had, but I'll talk to a lot of like younger strength coaches who I guess they don't really have like a clear like sense of like what they want to do like in the field. They're just like, maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do like, I don't know, like be a D1 strength coach for a football team. And hopefully that's my career. It's like, again, you're like, can you be a D1 strength coach? Like that, like you might have the knowledge base, but you and I know that takes a different type of skill set. It takes a different type of personality too.
Well, it also takes a
strength coach, like, right? It takes a different type of person.
Well, but it also, it might not even be a knowledge-based thing, man. It's a matter of who you know too. Like that's what it is. That's what it is more than it is your knowledge, in all honesty.
Yeah. And again, like I've never worked in that setting. But I can totally see that. Like at a certain level it is like who you know. But I even think too, like on the side, like even, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus too, like even coaches, like my own like friends and just people that, whether they're on our staff, but like just people I talk to, it's like, I'm like funny when I talk to like high school kids. I'm like, dude, if there's advice I can give you is like start your IRA, Roth IRA, like when you're 18, like right start it now. Yeah. And I have strength coaches that are like my age that are like, what are you talking about? What?
Yeah.
I'm like,
for real.
Dude,
for real.
Know that like, there's not a great retirement system set up for strength coaches. Like not many private gyms have 401ks through their private facilities. So it's like, if you're not taking care of your own personal finances, like, and you want to be a full-time strength coach, right? Like,
boy, you better figure something out. Yeah. No, for real. And I think let me hang out here for a second. I think that is the most important thing, if I'm being honest with you. Whether you're a Division I college strength and conditioning coach, private sector, it doesn't matter. If you aren't managing your money, if you aren't taking care of how I can build more dollars, put them in my pocket, I think you're severely doing yourself a disservice. And we don't like to talk about money in this industry, and I think we need to talk about money more.
I do.
I think I love to talk about money, but we need to talk about it more. We need to be talking about how can you what you need to be doing, what are the strategies. One of the guys I'm going to have on is a personal finance guy. I'm going to have an accountant on, and then I'm going to have somebody that does specifically like for investments, right? Because people need to know and understand how you can make your money start to work for you, which also goes back to the online thing because that can help you make more money, right? But if you're not getting your personal finances in order and getting that locked down, because it's a lot more money than what you think, right? You know, probably when our parents were growing up, they're like, oh, cool, invest in your 401k. If you have $1 million in there, 1.6 mil, 1.2 mil, by the time you retire, that's enough to live off of. Well, like, that probably is not going to be enough to live off of when you and I get there 30 years from now, right? It might be 10 mil. It might be 5. It might be 20. Who knows? I don't know what it is, but I know that it's probably going to be more than $1 million, right? And so if you're not understanding that, recognizing that, bro, you got to help yourself out. Like, you got to start talking to people. You got to start doing things differently because it takes time. It's not a 1-year thing. It's not a 10-year thing. It's a 40, 50-year thing. On top of that, you need to be investing in assets. You need to be investing in cash flow. The number one thing you need to be concerned about is cash flow, monthly cash flow. How much money can I make a month? And then what can I do with that money? But people aren't, they're not even concerned about their monthly cash flow.
Yeah. And again, I think like in our field, it's like, it's tough because like people be willing to take lower paid positions because they do want to chase. It's a hard topic because, again, like, who am I to say, like, don't chase, like, I want people to chase their passions. I want people to do what makes them happy. And again, like, I want to be clear, like, I'm not, like, I'm 31. Like, who am I? Like, I still, like, have opportunities to grow in this side of things. I think one thing that has helped me, like, is being self-aware. And, like, I've had like, my dad especially is, like, really taught me how to, like, manage money well and how to, like, have a budget and how to, like, pay off debts. And, like, I paid off my student loans, like, by 25. Like, I was able to buy a house. So I've been, like, smart with that stuff. And I know, like, maybe not everyone else is fortunate in terms of that. Like, having a good, like, my parents have set me up for that.
Sure.
So I definitely want to be, like, have empathy and then and stuff. But I do think, like, a lot of times, like, whether it is taking positions that are way beneath what people should be doing or doing countless like internships that are unpaid just for experience. But even, like, being willing to, like, I don't know, we can go in a whole other debate on this, like, being smart with, like, what they do. Like, okay, like, make sure you're not spending more than you make. Like, it's simple things, right? And sometimes, like, people in our field, I don't know, like, if it's just the people I talk to, like, I think they fail at that stuff. And I don't know why it's a strength coach thing, but potentially why there's so much turnover is because I do think, like, a lot of coaches don't manage their finances well.
Sure.
And obviously, like, there is sometimes a limit of, like, how much you can make from your position. So, like, we've talked about, like, how can you potentially, like, increase your cash flow? Like, are you doing stuff online? Are you potentially leveraging, like, what you already have to offer more? Like putting people on a retainer. Like, if you have private training clients, like, put them on a retainer so you get guaranteed cash flow every month.
Big deal.
Not like, oh, I only can charge you for this session. It's like, if you have someone you've been training for, like, more than a year, like, put them on, like, a 6-month retainer. Like, pay me up front for 6 months. And right. So I think there's ways, whether it's business or personal, to, like, continually improve your situation, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, again, like, I jokingly say this, but I'm also serious. Like, I want to be able to, like, step back over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years and coach significantly less and just coach the groups I really want to. Like, I really idolize Boyle because I think he's at a point where he, like, coaches just select groups.
Yep.
And he's obviously, like, probably on the floor a little bit, and that's kind of what I want to position myself to do down the line. But, like, not to the point where, like, okay, I'm running to the college, I'm coaching this session, I'm coaching this, I'm coaching that. Like, I'm coaching 10 hours a day. Because I know that's just not, like, what I did in my 20s. I know I probably can't do that for the next 30 years. Like, I put in a lot of, like, just hours on the floor. And now it's like I'm having this mindset of, like, how can I continue to do what I love, make good money where I don't have to, like, I want to be secure. Like there's a mindset too, like being like financially secure, still able to like do the things I love, but like also do this for X amount of years.
Yep.
So like, again, that's why like I'm trying to look into other things. Like, I mean, I posted this on my Twitter. I'm like getting into investing. Like I want to pay off my house aggressively in the next like 5 years and then buy a new home and then just rent my house out, have cash flow, like pay off my mortgage. And then like, those are goals that I'm doing on the side. Cause I know, okay, like I said earlier, like I can coach more hours and get paid more, but like at what expense to like my mental and physical health, right? Like, or I can be a little bit more strategic and I still want to coach, but what are other things I can get into? Right. So I think again, like the Roth IRA is a no brainer. Like it just blows my mind that there's like up to 30-year-olds that aren't like capitalizing on that. I always like, I just tell my high school kids all that time that, cause I definitely like wish I learned more about this stuff when I was their age. So like, I'm trying to like be that guiding voice to my athletes. Like, yo, take care of yourself. Like treat your future self nicely by taking care of yourself financially. And again, it's not a greedy, like I don't view money as like a, like it's not like, oh, I want boats, I want cars. Like I could care less about that stuff. It's more of like, I want to be able to live a life I want and have freedom. And if I want to take a trip,
well, I can do that. And not have to worry about the financial aspect of things. And you know, we can talk about, man, we could dive into it. It's sort of, but you know, you said, oh, I wish I would learn that when I was younger. Like, well, why aren't we teaching these kids personal finance in high school? Why aren't we teaching them how to manage their money? Why aren't we, you know what I'm saying? And we can dive deep into those, and maybe that's a conversation for another day, not right now. But there's just so much that, you know, we're not taught from a school system standpoint that could pay massive dividends for us. But, you have a personal responsibility for yourself to learn this information, and nobody's coming to save you but you. So you have to have a personal responsibility to go seek this information out, go understand it, and say, how can I get my money to work for me? And what are the multitude of ways to do that? Yeah.
And again, like, I think, you know, I can only speak to our field because that's the only field I've worked in really, but like, there's something unique to strength and conditioning where it is just like frowned upon to talk about, but like people don't want to even consider it. But to me, it's like when I've changed high schools like 2 to 3 different times. And every time I've like told my parents like, hey, I'm just going to, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, and again, like this is just their mindset. Like, oh, you making more then? Like, so every field, like when people make a career change, like, or like when people are like, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a lawyer. Oh, they must make good money. Like that's all they think about. Right. Because again, like that's just what's attached to it. But in our field, people don't like, strength coaches don't even want to like, they don't even sometimes care what they make. They're like, oh, I'm getting that position. I'm going to work as a blah, blah, blah strength coach. I'm going to be the 6 a.m. to like 5 p.m. making like what, 40 grand a year doing that. And like
my passion will pay the bills.
Yeah. And again, like in those positions, it is hard to like do stuff off the clock because like when you're like that one man or one woman show working like 6 a.m. to like 6 p.m. and then you come home, it's like you're grinding it out. Like, right. So it's hard for me to like, again, I've been like fortunate, but like in that situation to like have some autonomy in my day. But to your point too, like I like just this month alone, I've had 2 meetings with my financial advisor. So like I've been over the years like taking this necessary steps, and you know I've taken my time, my energy, my like, and I have to pay them for that. And like I think it's an investment on my future self, but like that has been my personal responsibility. I guess like we've been ranting for a little bit, but I think it's just something that strength coaches don't do enough of.
Exactly.
So, and again, I can only speak to like the people I know, but a lot of the younger strength coaches, I'm talking like the 22 to like 30. I think if you don't set yourself up in that time frame, I think it's really hard to continue on past 30 in this field.
Correct.
At least from a full-time standpoint. And again, sometimes this is a hard pill to swallow, but like, especially in the Northeast, like we've talked about this, if I was to get into this field again, I probably would have done PE and been a PE teacher full time and done high school strength conditioning in New York.
On the side. Yeah.
I think that would have from a financial and career and stability standpoint, been a little bit, if I known what I know now, I would have done that route.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes when coaches are like, hey, like, how do I get in a career track? I'm like if they live in New York or in this general Northeast area, I'm like, dude, be a high school PE teacher or a high school teacher and then coach on the side at a gym. Like,
yeah,
if you want to stay in this like general area, and again,
Yeah.
I'm not telling people to not go to private sector. I'm just giving them advice. Like, don't overlook that. Like, that's not a bad career path. And again, like, the private sector is a grind, and it's hard for a lot of private gyms to have multiple full-time people. So you kind of have to have some feel of like where you want to live and like,
Yep.
right. Like if you want to be a full-time high school strength and conditioning coach, you're probably not going to do it in New York. Like, you got to move to a different state.
Yep.
Right. So if you want to be a full-time D1 strength coach working with one team, making bank, like 6 figures, you probably got to go to like big time schools, right? And you potentially have to know people, right? So
Yep.
it's just having that feel of no. But yeah, I think at the end of this rant, just set yourself up for like financial success.
Okay, so yeah, and then let me close out with this. It's a game, man. No, like, for real, it's a game. And what I mean by that is you can't play the game until you learn the rules of the game. And then once you learn the rules of the game, now you can play the game however you need to play the game, right? And what I mean by that is, if it's a who you know game, well, you better start making connections. And you better start making those connections genuine. You better start nurturing those relationships. You better start, having conversations with those people. You better start, you know what I'm saying? Like, that aspect of things. It's a financial game. It is. Well, you better learn to play that game. How does this work? What are my numbers? What do I need? Like, everything. Advocate for yourself, right? If it's a education game, well, you need to know, like, where do I need to go for education? Who do I need to go to? Is it a school? Is it an internship? Is it an online certification? Is it whatever the case may be? But if you don't know the rules to the game, you don't know how to play the game, and you will always get played by the game. But if you understand how the game is played and the rules to the game, you can make anything happen, right? So it's just a matter of like, take a step back, understand the rules of the game, and then play. Like, people suck at Monopoly, so a lot of them don't know the rules of Monopoly. But if you understand that in Monopoly, if you buy a house or you own that house, and then you buy 3, and then you buy a hotel, you're going to be very successful in the game of Monopoly. Same thing in life, right? So understand the rules of the game, recognize it, understand how they're played, and then start playing the game. I think what you're saying is right. So many people get in and they're just like, I'm going to take this X amount of dollar job, and then this is what I'm going to do. And then 5 years goes by, and then they're mid-30s, and they're like, well, I don't know anybody, and I'm not making any money, and now I'm screwed.
I think too, like, if people are listening to this point, like, I certainly don't want to like scare people away from this field. And like,
great field, love it.
I think too, like, I look back, like, long story short, I know we're at the end of this, but like,
no, you're good.
I graduated with a criminal justice degree and psychology degree. Within a week or 2 weeks after that, I was always into like fitness, but I didn't even know what strength conditioning was. I enrolled for a kinesiology degree at another college. So I graduated a 4-year degree, and I was like, screw this, I'm not doing this. And I enrolled with no idea what I was going to do with it. I was just like, I got to get another degree because I got to be educated to be in this field. And I call it like worker's luck. Like, I've put myself in positions, I've networked, and like, I've gotten lucky in some aspects, but I think I've like made some of that luck. So I don't want to like scare people and be like, this field's tough, don't get in it. Like, obviously get in this field. It's a beautiful field.
Get in it. Yeah.
And like, not that every 18, 22-year-old is going to have the answers for stuff. I think if you are at that mindset, are at that age, you just have to start having that mind. And even if you're older than that, like, start just having a little bit more of a mindset of like your future self, because again, not to get like, just the world's going crazy, like inflation's crazy. Like, you have to start, you can't just be like, oh, I want to strength coach because I love working with athletes. Like, it needs to be beyond that. That initially can be like your, I guess, driving, like, why you initially get into it. But like, to stay in this field, you got to like just position yourself a little bit better from a mindset of a career wise and professional wise, rather than just like viewing. And I think a lot of people do view like strength conditioning as like a job, right? Like, if you want to do this and only do this, like, you got to just position yourself a little bit more ideally, I guess. And
yeah, it's got to be a career.
Framework.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly don't want to, I definitely want people to continue to get into this field, and obviously continue to have quality people in this field. I think it's just making smart decisions of like the positions they do take.
Yeah, exactly. And understanding that too. So, well, hey, look, man, I want to appreciate you for your time today, and appreciate the information that you provided here, because I think it's fantastic. I don't have a time limit. I'm like, how long this is going to go? It doesn't really matter to me, until we're like, hey, I thought that was pretty good. So I thought this was pretty good. But I want to say thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your knowledge, for coming on today. I really look forward to doing this again as well. And we can dive deeper into so many other topics, because this is not just a strength and conditioning podcast. It is so much more than that: personal finance, business, life, success, all of that, rather than just strength and conditioning. Even though that's the fields that we are currently in, that doesn't limit us to our knowledge and what we can speak on or what we should do in our lives as well. So again, guys, if you like this, give us a like, comment, subscribe. Would really greatly appreciate that. Follow Joe. Where can I follow you at, man?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Twitter and Instagram, and it's just my name, so Joe Aratari.
Yeah, awesome. Sweet. So if you're not following him, go give him a follow. He puts out unbelievable content, and it's very consistent, and it's really good, and you will definitely learn something from him. If you did not learn anything from this episode, you definitely learn stuff from his social media. So, Joe, appreciate that, man. Appreciate you. Look forward to talking to you here real soon, and thank you for today, man.
No problem. Thank you, Kendrick.
Yeah, absolutely.